daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Almighty God, who in thy wisdom and goodness hast appointed the office of rulers and parliaments for the welfare of society and the just government of men and women, we beseech thee to behold with thy abundant favor us thy servants, whom thou hast been pleased to call to the performance of important trusts in these islands. Let thy blessing descend upon us here assembled, and grant that we may treat and consider all matters that shall come under our deliberation in so just and faithful a manner as to promote thy honor and glory, and to advance the peace, prosperity, and welfare of these islands and those whose interests thou hast committed to our charge. And this we beg for Jesus Christ's sake. Amen. May the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ and the love of God and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with us all evermore. Amen.
Amen. Morning, members. The House is now in session. Members, the minutes of the 6th of December have been circulated. Are there any amendments required? There are none. The minutes will be confirmed as printed. Messages from the governor? There are none. Announcements by the speaker? The following members have indicated they'll be absent today. The Honorable Deputy Speaker, MP Susan Jackson, MP Ben Smith, MP Jamal Simmons have all indicated their absence for today. Messengers from the Senate, there are none. Papers and other communications to the House, we have 2 this morning. Premier, would you like to present yours?
Good morning, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I have the honor to attach and submit for the information of the Honorable House of Assembly the pre-budget report in advance of the fiscal year 2025-26.
Thank you. Minister of Labor and Economy and Labor.
Good morning, Mr. Speaker.
Morning.
Mr. Speaker, I have the honor to attach and submit for the information of the Honorable House of Assembly the approved Hamilton Residential Scheme guidelines.
Thank you. Petitions, there are none. Statements by ministers and junior ministers. We have 7 this morning. The first is in the name of the Premier and Minister of Finance. Premier?
Good morning, Mr. Speaker.
Morning.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to address this Honorable House and the people of Bermuda by providing an update to the government's fiscal performance and to share the details of the pre-budget report for the fiscal year 2025-26 tabled earlier today. This document represents a vital step in the budget process, underscoring this government's commitment to fiscal responsibility, transparency, collaboration, and our unwavering dedication to reducing the financial burden on the people of Bermuda while making the required investment to improve the quality of life in Bermuda. Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to announce that Bermuda is still firmly on track to achieve Bermuda's first balanced budget in 21 years. Despite the challenges we have faced, including global economic uncertainty, the government continues to deliver sound fiscal management. For fiscal year 2024-25, total revenue is projected to reach $1.26 billion, an increase of $30 million from the original estimate. This growth is driven by a recovering tourism sector, robust payroll tax collections, and strong overall economic performance. Revenue has increased across all but one category, demonstrating the diversity of our economic growth beyond international business. Mr. Speaker, on the expenditure side, we remain disciplined and are on track to meet our budget targets. Current accounts expenditures are projected at $1 billion, reflecting the $25 million social investment package addressing critical needs such as public safety, education, infrastructure, mental health, and senior care. Despite these additional investments and the 60% reductions in taxes on energy bills passed earlier this year, we are on track to deliver a surplus of at least $4 million. This is a remarkable achievement when we consider that Bermuda was in the midst of a global health crisis just 4 years ago, which crippled our economy and devastated our tourism industry. Mr. Speaker, I will now turn my attention to the pre-budget report, which is a strategic document that outlines the government's economic priorities and fiscal principles in anticipation of the upcoming budget. It provides transparency, encourages public engagement, and ensures accountability by inviting feedback on proposed policies and initiatives. The pre-budget report also allows stakeholders and the wider public to help shape the final budget, aligning it with the needs and aspirations of our community. Mr. Speaker, the theme of the 2024 speech from the throne was, and I quote, "A fairer Bermuda for all," end quote. This theme reflects a vision that guides every decision we make as a government because fairness is more than a goal. It is the foundation of a just society. Fairness in taxation, fairness in housing, fairness in banking services, and fairness in social services, and access to resource and opportunities underpin a good quality of life. And a good quality of life in a fair society is nothing less than what every Bermudian deserves. Since returning to office, this government has made delivering fairness our mission. We have worked to reduce the financial pressures on hardworking Bermudians and provide support where needed. Through initiatives such as reducing payroll taxes for 86% of workers in all local business, expanding the child daycare allowance, which has benefited hundreds of families, eliminating customs duties on essential goods, we have demonstrated our commitment to easing the burden on families and doing our part to ensure that more of the money that Bermudians work so hard for stays in their pockets. But, Mr. Speaker, we know that the drive for fairness is a continuous battle, and that for economic progress to be felt by all, we must continue to reduce the burden faced by many in our community. We are not just trying to undo decades of inequality and unfairness that benefited a few over the many, but also confronting new challenges. Rising food costs due to global inflation, high healthcare and energy costs, limited housing options, and aging infrastructure remain at the forefront of the challenges our people face every day. This pre-budget report lays out the next set of bold steps that this government will take to tackle these challenges head-on, ensuring that our policies and investment deliver tangible benefits to the people of Bermuda. Mr. Speaker, the pre-budget report states clearly that the government does not propose any broad-based tax or fee increases for the next fiscal year. This government has a strong record of reducing the burden of taxation, and the pre-budget report proposes additional measures to provide relief and continue this government's commitment to addressing the cost of living and the daily struggles faced by families across the island. Mr. Speaker, electricity bills affect every person and business in Bermuda. Earlier this year, the government reduced the tax on energy by 60%. In the next budget, the government proposes to reduce the tax on energy by a further 20%, representing a total 80% reduction on taxes on energy. Mr. Speaker, housing is a critical issue in Bermuda, and the government must do all it can to support the building of new homes and the renovation of vacant or derelict units. To support this critical national priority, the government proposes to eliminate customs duty on all building materials. This will directly lower the cost of building, renovating, and maintaining homes, which will further boost construction activity in Bermuda. Mr. Speaker, many Bermudians rely on their vehicles daily, and transportation costs remain a significant expense for many in our community. So to provide further relief and build upon previous reductions, the government proposes to lower the private car licensing fees by a further 10%. Further, recognize the strain placed on vehicles traveling on our roads, the government proposes to eliminate customs duty on parts used to maintain or repair motor vehicles. This elimination is proposed to include all motor vehicle parts and tires. Mr. Speaker, the personal allowance for duty when returning from overseas has not been adjusted since 2012. Therefore, the government proposes to raise the personal duty-free allowance for returning residents from $200 to $300. Mr. Speaker, connectivity is no longer a luxury, but a necessity in our modern world. We recognize the financial strain of paying mobile phone bills, and to address this, the government proposes to reduce the monthly tax on mobile phones by 50%. Mr. Speaker, land tax is a significant revenue earner for the government, but can also represent a burden for homeowners and renters alike. In 2019, a new base rate for land tax was introduced and set at $300 a year. Given the country's financial progress, the time is right to reduce this tax and to provide more tax relief. Therefore, the government proposes to reduce the base rate of land tax for all residential properties by 50% to $150. Mr. Speaker, these measures are designed with fairness at their core. They focus on the areas that touch every Bermudian's life: energy, housing, transportation, and connectivity. Each of these initiatives reflect this government's understanding of the real challenges faced by our people and our determination to provide meaningful relief to taxpayers. Mr. Speaker, moving to current account expenditure, the government is proposing a 3% increase in current account spending. All departments' budgets will remain at 2024-25 levels into fiscal year 25-26, inclusive of the funds allocated in the mid-year review. The 3% increase in overall current expenditure is solely for additional employee expenses attributable to the need to increase public sector salaries and benefits to keep public sector employment competitive with the private sector. This year's throne speech highlighted the fact that government has conducted a review of public sector salaries and aims to make revisions to public sector salaries and benefits to ensure that the public service remains competitive with the private sector. This will require improving the government health insurance scheme and ensuring that revised salary structures and expected negotiated pay increases are all fully funded within the 2025-26 budget. Mr. Speaker, moving on to capital expenditure, Bermuda's infrastructure underpins the quality of life of our residents and supports our economic growth. Bermudians are reminded daily of the impact of over a decade of underinvestment in infrastructure. As we have restored public finances and delivered a balanced budget, this government is committed to investing in projects that enhance our communities, create jobs for Bermudians, and improve their everyday lives and experiences. In the last budget, we passed the largest capital expenditure budget in 15 years. And in the last 3 years alone, we have committed $25 million to bring 71 more affordable housing units online, with 118 more on the way to provide greater options for Bermudian families. However, Mr. Speaker, this government will continue to do more because Bermudians need and deserve more. For fiscal year 2025-26, the government proposes to increase capital spending by $33 million to $145 million, which will fund an increase in the pace of road paving following the installation of the new asphalt plant. This $145 million allocation will also support critical infrastructure projects, including the replacement of the Swing Bridge, a vital link for our communities, additional investment in affordable housing to provide safe, secure shelter for all Bermudians, investments in public education infrastructure support reforms and ensure our schools are equipped for the future, construction of a seniors daycare facility to support our aging population, and the construction of the new Agricultural Services Center to boost domestic food production. Mr. Speaker, these projects are not just about bricks and mortar. They are about creating opportunities, improving lives, and delivering on the pledges made by this government. Mr. Speaker, 2025 will mark a significant milestone as Bermuda will begin to receive payments from the corporate income tax. As outlined in the 2024-25 budget statement, the government has conservatively projected $187 million in corporate income tax revenues for the upcoming fiscal year. These funds will be used strategically to support the initiatives outlined in the pre-budget report and ensure Bermuda's long-term fiscal stability. Mr. Speaker, access to quality, affordable health care is fundamental to building a fairer Bermuda. The pre-budget report outlines our plans to allocate $50 million from the new corporate income tax revenues to launch universal health care. This investment will improve services at the hospital, expand access to preventive care and specialist visits to ensure that we improve the overall health of our population. Mr. Speaker, the budget surplus is projected to be $84 million in fiscal year 2025-26. This amount, though much higher than expected, is necessary for the government to build up reserves in the sinking fund to reduce Bermuda's debt. While this government plans to invest in reducing healthcare costs for residents and businesses while boosting capital spending, we must also ensure that the $605 million of debt due to be repaid in 2027 can be repaid in full without the need to refinance that debt at what may be higher interest rates. Therefore, in this report, the government is setting out a provisional medium-term expenditure framework that provides a path with future corporate income tax revenues to repay the $605 million of debt due in January 2027 in full, Mr. Speaker. Net debt to GDP is expected to fall from 36% in fiscal year 2024-25 to just 23% in fiscal year 2027-28. Interest payments are expected to reduce from $128 million in fiscal year 2025-26 to $105 million in fiscal year 27-28. Mr. Speaker, it is important to note that these projections have been made on conservative estimates of CIT revenues, as the government has not projected the expected $750 million in the projection in fiscal years 2026-27 and 27-28. If CIT revenues are higher than the $600 million that has been used in these projections, the sinking fund will have higher balances to enable accelerated debt repayments while also considering any recommendations from the Tax Reform Commission for strategic investments such as setting up a sovereign wealth fund for future generations of Bermudians. In future years, the medium-term expenditure framework provides for further tax reductions to reduce the cost of living and the cost of doing business in Bermuda, while increasing capital spending to the 2% of GDP target. The government is not making any specific proposals for tax reductions in future fiscal years as we await the Tax Reform Commission's recommendations. Mr. Speaker, the government invites the people of Bermuda to participate in shaping the policies and priorities that will impact their lives. We encourage the public to review the pre-budget report and the proposals contained within and share their feedback and recommendations through the government consultation portal at forum.gov.bm or by emailing openbudget@gov.bm. Prior to delivering the budget, the Ministry of Finance will hold meetings with key stakeholders, including the Bermuda Trade Union Congress, the international business community, local business representatives, and the most important stakeholder, Bermudian taxpayers. These consultations will ensure that the upcoming budget reflects the needs and aspirations of our community. Mr. Speaker, as I close, I wish to affirm my sincere expectation that 2025 will be a transformative year in Bermuda. With the first revenue collections from the corporate income tax, we will not only deliver relief, but also make strategic investments to ensure long-term prosperity and set Bermuda on a path to repay its national debt. From universal health care to critical infrastructure projects like the replacement of Swing Bridge, we will lay the foundation for a stronger, more resilient Bermuda. This government remains steadfast in its mission to ensure that every Bermudian feels the benefits of our sound fiscal management. Through careful planning, prudent decision-making, and inclusive consultation, we are reducing costs for Bermudians while investing in our future. Mr. Speaker, Bermuda has come a long way from the challenges of the global financial crisis, a long way from the One Bermuda Alliance's austerity budgets, and a long way from the impact of a once-in-a-century pandemic. However, this government has remained steadfast in our commitment to rebuilding Bermuda with Bermudians at heart, to ensure that Bermudians are the beneficiaries of this island's economic success. This pre-budget report proposes bold initiatives to ease financial pressures, invest in critical infrastructure, and improve access to health care, all while maintaining fiscal responsibility. It is a plan that will ensure that this government delivers on its mission of building a fairer Bermuda for all. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Premier. Members, the next statement this morning is in the name of the Minister of Works. Minister,
Good morning, Mr. Speaker.
morning.
I'm pleased to report on the future use of closed and soon-to-be-closed schools and to give a look forward. Mr. Speaker, in April 2019, the Minister of Education announced the permanent closure of T.N. Tatum Middle School, and responsibility for its use reverted to the Ministry of Public Works. Mr. Speaker, as I reported then, the buildings could not simply remain shuttered while we decided its future use. Everyone knows what happens when any building in our subtropical climate is closed. It is the perfect environment for mold and mildew, Bermuda's national flower, to flourish. I conducted a tour of the facility to ascertain what steps should be taken to ensure the integrity, security, and ongoing cleanliness of the buildings. We discussed the temporary repurposing of some buildings so that there remained a physical presence on site to discourage vandalism, damage, or even unauthorized occupancy of the buildings, all of which occurred over this period. Mr. Speaker, several classrooms, particularly those in the Family Services Block, a single-story structure at the eastern end of the property, were suitable for various community activities that could provide the physical presence we sought. Included in that area is a weight training room, carpentry and woodwork shops, family studies, a kitchen, and counseling rooms along with bathroom facilities. All these areas were evaluated for mold or air quality issues. Mr. Speaker, Pembroke Hamilton Club, PHC, have had a long-standing lease arrangement with the Ministry of Public Works for the use of the playing field for both football training and their multitude of community programs. So it was a natural fit to approach them first to see if there could be some temporary expanded use of the school facilities that could assist with their programs. They were very receptive to the offer, and we have provided use of classroom space for their after-school programs and bathroom facilities. Mr. Speaker, at that time there were 5 entities occupying space at the facility. They included Bermuda's most outstanding professional boxer, Mr. Nicky Bascom, who runs a boxing gym that also caters to young folk interested in the sport. Mr. Mikado Campbell, now joined by Mr. Darius Richardson, who run an after-school carpentry program for students. Ms. Gina Thomas is running Hidden Treasures Thrift Boutique. Mrs. Lucinda Worrell-Stowe ran Positive Energy Community Kitchen, and Mr. Servio Cox is running a fitness gym in the gymnasium that is geared more to the casual fitness buff rather than the hardcore gym rat. Mr. Speaker, sadly, Mrs. Worrell-Stowe passed earlier this year, and we have identified another chef to take over the community kitchen. The ministry intends to purchase the equipment so that the site can remain a community kitchen where entrepreneurs can book kitchen time to prepare their goods. Mrs. Worrell-Stowe also used the kitchen to teach difficult students how to cook and become productive citizens. Discussions are ongoing with the new operator to still include that option that helps so many young people. Mr. Speaker, over the 5 years that the site has been occupied, 11 other community-minded groups, individuals have taken space. Restoration Ministries of the Seventh-day Adventist Church, Tomorrow's Voices, the Autism Charity, Grace Point Church, Omar Smith Inc. Press Services, DeAndre Morris, Martial Arts and After School Program. Ruben Bean, Jaketsu Martial Arts Fitness and Natural Healing. Entrepreneurs Keola Thompson, Tasia Warner, Sharon Meeks, Sharmika Brown, and Akil Darrell all have storage space at the site. Mr. Speaker, Tatum is fully booked now and there is a waiting list for space. Each organization must have a community aspect to their business. The site is a thriving community that willingly share resources and work well together. Each entity pays a nominal fee towards electricity used based on space and type of activities they are involved in. Mr. Speaker, the next school to close was the Heron Bay Primary School. While several options have been considered, the government has decided to establish a sustainable government-backed cooperative grocery store to introduce competition into the local food market to reduce overall food prices in Bermuda and provide investment and wealth generation opportunities. Mr. Speaker, the government-initiated Cooperative Food Vendor Project is an integral part of the government's larger cost of living reduction measures strategy to specifically address the increasing cost of living in Bermuda. Expressed public discontent with the rising cost of living in Bermuda has been most reflected in the increased cost of food. Government provided duty relief for 33 essential food commodity items in July 2022, whereby the objective was for the cost savings from the alleviation of import duty for grocers to be reflected in a reduction of retail pricing for commodity food items. Statistical retail sales data provided by the Department of Statistics has shown that this has not been the case, as there has been no substantive reduction in retail pricing of commodity items by local grocers. This necessitated the need to introduce a substantive, direct measure to address the issue of food pricing in Bermuda. Mr. Speaker, I suspect there will be an outcry from the grocery store community, but we are left with little choice when they refuse to collaborate with us and reduce their prices. A government-supported cooperative grocery store is well placed to directly address this issue by offering affordable food options directly to the consumer. This initiative is a unique opportunity for the government to affect food prices through the introduction of competition in the local market, while also providing wealth-building opportunities for the community through cooperative investment prospects. Work on this initiative is advancing apace with a full view of operation by next year. Mr. Speaker, Clearwater Middle School has also temporarily closed as a middle school with a long-term plan to convert it to a senior school. The school remains under the jurisdiction of the Ministry of Education, who have indicated that it will be temporarily repurposed for use as a special school so that the current vandalism and destruction can be arrested and the asset protected. Mr. Speaker, Gilbert Institute is scheduled for closure next year. The government has decided to convert this site into a seniors daycare facility, having first considered Heron Bay. The Ministry of Youth, Social Development and Seniors, under whom this will fall, is already collaborating with the Ministry of Public Works to advance this initiative before the school closes so that conversion works can commence immediately upon closure. Mr. Speaker, as we progress through the education reform in other schools near their closing, the government will seek new uses for those facilities and encourage those in the community looking for space to apply. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Minister. Members, the next statement this morning is in the name of the Minister of Economy and Labor. Minister?
Good morning, Mr. Speaker.
Morning.
Mr. Speaker, I'm honored to present to this honorable House the approved Hamilton Residential Scheme Guidelines. These guidelines outline the application process for the approved Hamilton residential schemes and details the additional information and criteria that will be considered during the application review. Furthermore, I am delighted to announce that the approved Hamilton residential scheme is now open for applications. Mr. Speaker, the Bermuda government is dedicated to stimulating economic growth with a particular emphasis on the development of housing in the capital city of Hamilton. By focusing on residential construction, the government aims to attract more residents to the city, thereby boosting local businesses and creating a more vibrant and dynamic urban environment. Mr. Speaker, the vision of the city of Hamilton, a city that seamlessly integrates homes, employment opportunities, and recreational attractions, aligns with the Economic Development Strategy 2023-2027. It underscores our commitment to growing the residential population of the island's capital, recognizing the pivotal role that residential development plays in revitalizing the city. Mr. Speaker, the Bermuda government launched the Approved Hamilton Residential Scheme to encourage investment in residential properties within the city of Hamilton. By increasing the number of residents in Hamilton, we anticipate a significant boost in investment in complementary services such as shopping, dining, and entertainment. This in turn will enhance the prospects for investors to see positive returns on their city investments. Mr. Speaker, the Approved Hamilton Residential Scheme will allow non-Bermudians, exempted companies, and overseas or exempted partnerships to participate in Hamilton's residential property market by developing residential dwelling units. This initiative not only facilitates foreign direct investment, but also reinforces the city as the island's premier international business, retail, and recreational hub. Mr. Speaker, once granted and approved, Hamilton Residential Scheme approval will remain in effect indefinitely. This provision protects against revocation and expropriation risk, providing long-term security for investors. Furthermore, it guarantees that the ownership of the subsequently purchased residential unit will be unaffected by the immigration status of the buyer, ensuring stability and confidence in the market. Mr. Speaker, in conclusion, the Approved Hamilton Residential Scheme represents a forward-thinking approach to urban development. By fostering a thriving residential community in Hamilton, we are laying the groundwork for sustained economic growth and a vibrant, dynamic city that benefits all Bermudians. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Minister. Members, the next statement this morning is in the name of the Minister of Youth, Social Development, and Seniors.
Good morning, Mr. Speaker.
Morning.
Good morning, honorable members and fellow Bermudians. Today, I'm honored to announce the launch of Bermuda's first national senior strategy. It brings me great pride to share the progress made in fulfilling the government's 2020 Throne Speech initiative, which was to develop a national senior strategy with an emphasis on dementia care. Mr. Speaker, the strategy aims to not only address the challenges faced by our seniors, but also to guide collaborative efforts across all sectors of society, the government, community, and beyond, to uncover opportunities that will enhance the health, well-being, and quality of life of our seniors and future generations. This landmark strategy represents a significant milestone in our dedication to supporting Bermuda's aging population, ensuring that they can age with dignity, independence, and a high quality of life. Mr. Speaker, with seniors projected to represent approximately 25% of our population by 2026, this strategy comes at a crucial time. The ministry's extensive consultation process reached community stakeholders in the public, private, and charitable sectors who were invited to participate in various focus group sessions, town hall discussions, and also to complete surveys. The consultation process concluded with a draft copy of the strategy placed on the government citizen forum website for a further 4 weeks during September and October to obtain input and feedback from the general public. Mr. Speaker, the National Senior Strategy was made available for public consultation from September 23rd, 2024 until October 18th, 2024. During this time, the ministry received a variety of feedback responses. Many of the public responses were consistent, highlighting issues such as the implementation and governance of the strategy, the financial challenges faced by seniors due to the high cost of living, healthcare, and caregiver support, as well as the need for improved accessibility and stronger community support for seniors. The feedback received from the public was thoroughly reviewed, and it was very pleasing to find that the draft strategy already included provisions for many of the issues pointed out. For example, Pillar 1 tackles the affordability of healthcare and long-term services, while also aligning initiatives to promote healthy lifestyles throughout the life course as outlined in the Bermuda Health Strategy. Pillar 2 focuses on caregiver support and addresses the cost of living concerns, including pensions and retirement savings. Pillar 3 covers accessibility, and Pillar 4 emphasizes community support, engagement, and collaboration. Mr. Speaker, there was concern expressed about ensuring the strategy would not just be a document placed on file, but would be living. We agree, Mr. Speaker. To support the successful governance of this national senior strategy, a project manager will be hired and appointed to steer the execution of the action items. Under the strategic oversight of the ministry headquarters, the project manager will be responsible for overseeing the implementation, coordination, and regular reporting necessary to achieve the desired outcomes outlined in the strategy. We are committed to making continuous progress towards the goals set forth in the National Senior Strategy over the 6 years, 2024 to 2030. Mr. Speaker, the information gathered from the consultation process helped shape a comprehensive framework for a national senior strategy built on 4 key pillars. Pillar 1, healthy aging. Pillar 2, empowered citizens. Pillar 3, age-friendly environments. And Pillar 4, community. Mr. Speaker, let me now expand on the elements of each of these 4 pillars. Pillar 1, healthy aging, emphasizes the importance of a robust system of governance, effective coordination, and ensuring equal access to affordable and essential services for our seniors. These services aim to enhance overall health, quality of life, and well-being throughout all stages of life. This comprehensive approach highlights governance and coordination, establishing clear policies, regulations, and structures to oversee and integrate health and social care systems efficiently, accessibility and affordability, ensuring that everyone, regardless of their social economic status, can access services necessary for maintaining health and well-being. Life course perspective, addressing the needs of every individual at every stage of life, childhood, adolescence, adulthood, and old age, through tailored support and services. Person-centered term care services that assist individuals with daily living, daily activities over an extended period. To ensure sustainability and effective progress in this sector, a thorough evaluation of health, social, and long-term care system funding is essential. Additionally, caregiving plays a vital role in the current health and long-term care framework, making it imperative to prioritize this and support caregiving well-being. This integrated perspective acknowledges that healthy about ensuring the sustainability of the systems and the well-being of those providing care. Mr. Speaker, Pillar 2, empowered citizens, champions the rights for seniors to actively participate in, contribute to, and benefit from economic, social, cultural, and political activities. Protecting the rights of our seniors fosters dignity, well-being, and inclusion, which together build a society of empowered individuals, citizens who confidently exercise their right to self-determination, make decisions about their lives, active participation in society, particularly in economic activities, plays a crucial role in ensuring financial security. Through this pillar, the government commits to taking action to strengthen income and economic security for all. Mr. Speaker, Pillar 3, age-friendly environments, emphasizes the enhancement of age-friendly environments that prioritize accessibility, safety, and inclusivity, ensuring that they cater to the needs of individuals of all ages. Our seniors desire to continue doing the things they love and value to the public should be accessible, allowing us all to navigate comfortably despite our age or ability. Finally, Mr. Speaker, Pillar 4, community, underscores the importance of community. When our community is connected, we are better able to address common challenges that limit our ability to age well and support and protect our most vulnerable. John Donne, a known poet and scholar, famously wrote, "No man is an island entirely of. Every man is a piece of the continent, a part of the main." His words highlight the interconnectedness of humanity, and Pillar 4 echoes this idea, urging us to foster close-knit community. Pillar 4 calls on the community to reclaim the village spirit, embracing empathy and a culture of mutual care, where we look out for one another, share knowledge, and work together to reduce social isolation and loneliness, two significant challenges that many seniors face. Mr. Speaker, the National Senior Strategy 2024-2030 is a comprehensive framework that requires extensive collaboration across ministries, sectors, and stakeholders. Its successful implementation depends on coordinated efforts between various government ministries, departments, nonprofit organizations, healthcare providers, and community partners. As detailed in the strategy's implementation section and stakeholder alignments, each pillar, from healthy aging to community engagement, requires multiple entities working together to achieve the stated goals. The strategy acknowledges that no single organization can tackle the complex challenges of an aging population alone. This is demonstrated by the extensive cross-referencing of initiatives and action items that span across organizational boundaries, such as the coordination between healthcare services, housing development, transportation infrastructure, and social support systems. A cohesive partnership between the public, private, and charitable sectors is essential to create an age-friendly Bermuda that supports the well-being and quality of life of our seniors. Mr. Speaker, today's launch marks the consummation of dedicated work involving a wide range of stakeholders across our community, including seniors, caregivers, healthcare providers, and many other organizations. The strategy incorporates insights from successful initiatives such as the Dementia Care Services pilot program that commenced in October 2023, which provided a valuable understanding of the specific needs of our senior population. The ministry is currently collaborating with the Bermuda Health Council to develop an integrative care pathway for dementia care services that will form a critical branch of the senior strategy. Mr. Speaker, we listened to our seniors during the consultation process, and many shared their personal stories and emphasized the need for greater access to dementia care services. Thus, the ministry, with the technical support of the Bermuda Health Council, is taking a strategic approach to provide a comprehensive evidence-based assessment of current dementia care practices on island to develop an integrative care pathway for dementia. This strategic approach will result in recommending actionable steps for enhancing dementia care in Bermuda in alignment with the international best practices. Key deliverables that will help shape the integrative care pathway for dementia include the completion of a patient journey map, development of patient personas, service mapping and a gap analysis, a desktop review and documentation of best practices, and a workshop series for stakeholder engagement and feedback. Mr. Speaker, the development of the integrative care pathway for dementia will span an estimated 6 months from November, from when the preliminary work commenced. Mr. Speaker, the National Senior Strategy 2024-2030 outlines concrete actions and measurable goals for the next 6 years. Implementation will begin immediately for those action items with the remit of the Ministry of Youth, Social Development and Seniors, with regular progress updates to ensure accountability and effectiveness. However, Mr. Speaker, you will recall I have shared this previously, that all of us have a part to play. The implementation of the strategy actions will require a coordinated and collaborative approach by different government ministries and departments, and a whole community approach involving different private and charitable agencies. The action items are achievable. The vision of the National Senior Strategy is an inclusive Bermuda that celebrates and prepares responsibly for aging. We are all aging, and I challenge each of us to take ownership of this strategy, and let's work together to prepare responsibly aging for all. Mr. Speaker, the first ever National Senior Strategy is available on government's website at www.gov.bm. Hard copies can also be obtained from the Office of Aging and Disability Services and the ministry headquarters. I encourage my honorable colleagues and the public to review the National Senior Strategy, as it will affect all of us, as it provides a blueprint for supporting Bermuda seniors to ensure that they celebrate life and age well. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Thank you, Minister. Members, the next statement this morning is in the name of the Minister of Transport. Minister?
Mr. Speaker, I appreciate the opportunity to speak before this honorable House and the people of Bermuda. Mr. Speaker, as we approach the end of this calendar year, I am pleased to provide an updated report on the status and outlook of Bermuda's airlift, a cornerstone of both our economy and tourism industry. As I emphasized earlier this year, airlift serves as Bermuda's critical link to the world, facilitating access to essential medical care, welcoming visitors, supporting commerce, and enabling leisure travel. It is a powerful catalyst driving opportunities, generating revenue, creating jobs, and enriching our quality of life. Airlift is an engine propelling our growth, allowing innovation, advancing employment, and securing our shared prosperity. Mr. Speaker, the Ministry of Transport remains dedicated to its commitment to strengthening Bermuda's airlift capacity, quality, and diversity, ensuring resilience and robust support for our local population, particularly in meeting critical medical needs. We are equally focused on positioning Bermuda as an appealing and accessible destination for leisure and business travelers alike. Today, I will share an update on trends in airlift performance, the challenges we have successfully navigated, and the opportunities we are actively pursuing. I will also emphasize the significant benefits that airlift brings to Bermuda's economy and its people. Mr. Speaker, I present an overview of the trends in Bermuda's airlift capacity over the past 7 years, including 2024 year to date to end of October, including developments achieved. In 2018, Bermuda's enjoyed a robust airlift capacity with around 611,000 seats available. In 2019, seat capacity experienced a slight decline, dropping to approximately 580,000, a reduction of about 5% compared to the previous year. The global COVID-19 pandemic in 2020 led to a sharp contraction in airlift capacity, reaching a historic low of just over 170,000 seats, a staggering 71% decrease from 2019. In 2021, the sector began to recover, with seat capacity rising to roughly 237,000, an increase of about 39% from the previous year. This recovery momentum continued in 2022 as seat capacity climbed to approximately 356,000, marking a significant growth of 50% compared to 2021. By 2023, airlift capacity had further expanded to around 433,000 seats, reflecting an additional 22% growth from the previous year. At the end of October 2024, the airlift capacity stands at 466,350, which exceeded the total seats for 2023 by 8%. The year-to-date to October 2024 versus the previous period in 2023 was 466,350 seats versus 370,000 seats, a 26% increase. Mr. Speaker, as I emphasized before, despite the challenges posed by the pandemic in 2020, we remain steady in our commitment to maintaining Bermuda's airlift and resolute in our optimism for recovery. We took focused measures to safeguard public health, support our airline partners, stimulate demand, and rebuild confidence in our connectivity. Mr. Speaker, one of the key commitments the government made to ensure that Bermuda and its people remain connected to the global community was to uphold our obligation under the Guaranteed Minimum Regulatory Revenue, GMMR, provision within the agreement with Skyport, which was triggered by the pandemic in 2020. As part of this, the government made the following payments to Skyport over the various fiscal years. In 2020, $21 million was paid. Year 2021, $16 million was paid. In year 2022, $9 million was paid. In 2023, $351,000 was paid. In the year 2024, $56,000 has been paid to date. A total of $46,878,738. 46 million, sorry, thank you. 46,878,738. Mr. Speaker, these payments were not merely transactions to uphold an agreement. They played a crucial role in ensuring that Bermudas remain viable, sustainable, and accessible to the global community. The funds provide a foundation for the island's continuous prosperity, enabling its economic stability and growth. Furthermore, sustaining international connections and ensuring Bermuda as a thriving hub that is not only resilient, but also opens and welcome to the global community was essential, and likewise ensuring our people the same. Mr. Speaker, as noted in 2023, we reached nearly 433,000, an increase of 22% over 2022. As I envisioned earlier this year, the upward trajectory continued in that the airlift capacity increased even further in 2024. These rising figures reflect Bermuda's strong recovery and stand as a testament to our resilience and adaptability in overcoming adversity. The continued growth in air travel highlights our capacity not only to weather challenges, but to emerge stronger, reaffirming Bermuda's status as a premier destination of choice. Mr. Speaker, the Ministry of Transport, in close collaboration with our esteemed partners, stakeholders, has been persistent in its effort to enhance airlift service. I'm pleased to share some of the significant achievements we have accomplished this year, which has contributed to the growth in our airlift capacity. American Airlines launched its flights between Washington Reagan National Airport and Bermuda with seasonal flights that resumed in April 2024. This route offers convenient connections to the U.S. capital and beyond, as well as increasing our exposure to a key political and business market. While the seasonal Washington flight will continue in 2025, it will commence 2 months later in June 2025. American Airlines resumed its daily nonstop service to Miami on November 5th, 2023, extending its year-round connectivity from Miami to Bermuda. This complements the already established year-round service from New York, JFK Airport, and seasonal daily flights from Philadelphia. American Airlines has made seasonal adjustments to its schedule for their Miami and Charlotte flights in January and February 2025. JetBlue continues to offer year-round service to Boston, significantly enhancing our connectivity and boosting local passenger satisfaction, particularly for those traveling for medical purposes. The re-establishment of the seasonal route in the fall of 2023 has expanded our travel options and underscores our commitment to providing convenient and reliable air travel solutions. Bermuda Air celebrated its first anniversary in September 2024, and the airline has established connections with 7 major markets: Boston, Westchester, New York, Baltimore, Fort Lauderdale, Orlando, Toronto, and Halifax, representing a noteworthy achievement in our expansion efforts to provide increased travel options. Bermuda Air has announced plans to expand to 3 additional markets in Montreal, Quebec, Hamilton, Ontario, and Norfolk, Virginia. Mr. Speaker, this year's United Airlines began flying year-round from New York Newark Airport to Bermuda for the first time since 2016. Mr. Speaker, on June 1st, 2024, United Airlines celebrated 35 years of serving Bermuda, a milestone that underscores their long-standing dedication to our island. I extend my gratitude for their decades of service and the commitment to Bermuda, highlighted by their recent expansion of seats capacity on the New York to Bermuda route. Mr. Speaker, British Airways continues to provide Bermuda's main connection to the United Kingdom. With its direct service to London Heathrow, I met with senior British Airways officials in London in October 2024 to discuss partnerships and strategic initiatives aimed at strengthening the long-standing air connection between Bermuda and London. Mr. Speaker, one of our other long-standing airline partners are Delta and Air Canada, who provides air service to Atlanta, New York, JFK, and Toronto. I met with senior officials at these airlines, also headquarters, in 2023 to discuss collaborative efforts to grow their air connections. Mr. Speaker, our smallest airline partner is Azores Airlines, who provide a seasonal and increasing popular connection to Azores with connection options to Europe. Mr. Speaker, in conclusion, I wish to express my gratitude to all those who have contributed to the success of our airline and continue to support our efforts to expand and improve it. I thank our airline partners, the Airport Authority, Skyport, Tourism Authority, hoteliers, travel agencies, taxi drivers, hospitality workers, and all public servants who are dedicated to ensuring the success of our airline system. I wish to conclude by saying that airlift is not just a means of transport. It is a source of inspiration. It is not solely about Bermuda, but all about connecting us to the world. It is not just about flights, but about the feelings they inspire. Airlift is not only about today, but about securing our future for tomorrow. Mr. Speaker, thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Members, the next statement this morning is in the name of the Minister of Health. Minister?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and good morning.
Morning.
The Christmas holiday is a time to embrace the joy of togetherness, share meals and traditions, and bask in the warmth of the season. For many, it is a festive time of celebration, but for some, the bells of joy and happiness may not be ringing loudly. The holidays, while a time of joy and celebration, can also bring stressors such as the pressure of gift giving, busy schedules, distance from loved ones, or the grief of losing someone dear. These challenges can make it hard to fully embrace the festive season. That is why it is crucial to prioritize mental health during this time. Taking steps to manage stress, acknowledging one's feelings, and seeking support when needed can make a significant difference in the state of our overall well-being. Mr. Speaker, as I have said in this honorable House on several occasions, it is important to remember that caring for one's mental health is just as vital as physical health, especially when facing emotional challenges. By taking time for self-care and kindness and reaching out for help when necessary, navigating the holiday season can be done with greater resilience and peace of mind. Mr. Speaker, for anyone who is finding the holidays difficult, here are a few reminders to help cope. First, set a realistic budget for how much you can comfortably spend and stick to it. It's easy to get carried away with holiday shopping, but keeping track of your finances is key to avoiding stress. Remember, thoughtful gifts do not have to or need to have a high price tag. This Christmas, consider giving the gift of your time, whether it's volunteering with a local charity or offering assistance to a neighbor in need. A heartfelt gesture can often mean more than a material gift, and it helps spread holiday cheer in a meaningful way. Mr. Speaker, second, Thoughtfully plan your activities and carve out time for the things that matter most to you. Be sure to include time for rest and the enjoyment of your favorite leisure activities. Third, set aside time to connect with people, places, or activities that bring you joy, whether it's spending time with friends, attending community events, or engaging in hobbies. These connections can boost your happiness and mental health. Additionally, Mr. Speaker, don't forget to check in on our seniors who may experience social isolation, especially during the holidays. Regular visits, phone calls, or simple gestures of kindness can make a big difference in their emotional well-being, helping them to feel valued and supported. Fourth, Mr. Speaker, prioritize self-care by maintaining a balanced diet, moderating alcohol consumption, engaging in regular physical activity, and ensuring that you get enough sleep. These habits are essential for both mental and physical well-being, helping to improve mood, reduce stress, and boost energy levels. Taking small steps each day to care for your body can have a significant positive impact on your mental health. Fifth, it's important to pay close attention to your feelings during the holiday season. Recognize when you're feeling overwhelmed, anxious, or down, and do not hesitate to express how you are feeling to your loved ones. Let them know how they can support you, whether it's through a simple walk, sharing a meal, or just spending time together. These small gestures can have a big impact on your mental and emotional well-being. And if you're finding it particularly challenging to cope, remember that it's okay to reach out for support, whether it's community mental health provider, a support group, or a faith-based organization. There are resources available to help you through these difficult times. Mr. Speaker, it takes courage to recognize when you need support, and reaching out is a proactive first step towards healing and maintaining your mental well-being. By asking for help, you are taking control of your health, demonstrating strength in facing challenges, and making a significant difference in your journey towards healing and peace. Mr. Speaker, we want to remind the community that seeking help for mental health is not a sign of weakness, but rather an important and powerful step towards maintaining well-being. Openly discussing mental health, reducing stigma, and encouraging supportive conversations are essential in creating an environment where everyone feels comfortable asking for help. By continuing to openly talk about it, we can foster a stronger, more compassionate community that values the importance of mental health care and support. So let us remember to spread kindness and look out for those who may be struggling this Christmas. Mr. Speaker, the holidays can be especially tough for those already facing mental health challenges, which is why we must continue to create a supportive environment for all. The government, through its comprehensive package interventions, is committed to creating a supportive environment designed to identify and respond to the mental health needs of our population. And we are enthused about the imminent rollout of our anti-stigma campaigns, our targeted programs, and community partnerships for the promotion of mental wellness. Mr. Speaker, as we navigate the holiday season and beyond, let us continue our conversations, advocacy, and support for mental health. Together, we can foster the knowledge and strength to cope with life's stresses, seek help when needed, and to offer support to others. By having open conversations and offering compassion to one another, we can build a community where everyone feels supported and valued. In closing, Mr. Speaker, I wish Bermuda a Christmas filled with peace, warmth, and mental health wellness. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Minister. Madam, Mr. Final statement this morning is in the name of the Minister of Cabinet. Minister, Premier.
Good morning, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to remind this honorable House of the critical role played by the Department of Planning in supporting the island's community from economic, social, and environmental perspectives, as well as shaping Bermuda's future. The department is responsible for a wide range of functions, including the review and approval of development applications, the preparation and implementation of planning policies, and the provision of expert planning advice. Mr. Speaker, an equally important function of the department is building control, which ensures that all building work, new or existing, adheres to stringent life safety standards. This oversight is essential to prevent loss of life and property damage. Building control extends beyond structures to encompass construction processes and site protection, ensuring compliance with rigorous guidelines in the interests of welfare and the quality of our built environment. Building control, in collaboration with the Bermuda Fire and Rescue Service and the Department of Health, reviews and issues over 800 permits and 400 permit revisions per year. Depending on the type and content of the application, each building control review could take between a few days and 10 to 12 weeks. Mr. Speaker, the Department of Planning has recently partnered with the GO program, a European Union-funded initiative in facilitating the review of the building code, with an emphasis being placed on sustainability and energy efficiency. The key areas to be addressed are structural resilience, i.e., building resilience to extreme weather, energy efficiency, i.e., building energy performance, rainwater capture and storage, i.e., for potable water use, and stormwater mitigation strategies, i.e., flooding mitigation on individual land plots. Mr. Speaker, the primary considerations will be the minimum standards to be incorporated in the newly proposed building code, and ensuring that careful trade-offs are made on mandatory minimum standards versus affordability, i.e., in light of the cost of building measures. The department, within the past 2 years, has been afforded the authority through legislative amendments to impose civil penalties on owners, agents, and contractors who violate planning regulations. Mr. Speaker, this empowers the department to deter Mr. Speaker, this empowers the department to require developers to comply with the relevant regulations and deter future infractions whilst generating revenue for government. This deterrent is critical to protecting Bermuda's environment from damage caused by unlawful development, and it is hoped that such penalties will provide comfort to the community that planning regulations are being properly enforced. Mr. Speaker, during this year, the department has supported changes to legislation which affects retroactive applications, which, together with the introduction of civil penalties, has allowed applications for retroactive planning permission to be processed efficiently, whilst ensuring that those who have breached planning control are appropriately penalized. This calendar year alone, Mr. Speaker, the department has received 408 planning applications. A dedicated team of staff evaluates these applications and submits recommendations to the Development Applications Board or the Director. Decisions are made using a pragmatic approach based on careful consideration of the relevant planning policies, the characteristics of sites and their surroundings, and the circumstances of each particular case. That includes consideration of feedback from the public and other government consultees. The department also offers a pre-consultation service through which advice on development proposals can be obtained free of charge. Mr. Speaker, the department is actively engaged in several key initiatives, such as the creation of a new General Development Order, which will expedite the planning process for forms of development which are unlikely to pose adverse impacts, including the introduction of permitted changes of use. The replacement of Advertisements Regulation Act 1911 to allow unauthorized advertisements to be dealt with more effectively and efficiently. Introducing a competent person scheme, which will allow professionals to self-certify certain forms of development, such as the installation of solar panels, which will significantly improve efficiency in the building permit process. The biennial City Health Check assesses vacancy rates in Hamilton and provides valuable insight for future development. The identification and promotion of development opportunities for vacant and derelict properties through a dedicated story map. The preparation and publication of an annual housing land audit, providing detailed analysis of the island's housing sector with a view to informing future planning policy. Preparation of a comprehensive listed building audit to ensure the list is up to date and informed by contemporary best practice methodology, and exploring the creation of an online database of land available for agricultural purposes to support healthy lifestyles and sustainable food production. Mr. Speaker, the upcoming City of Hamilton Plan represents a significant milestone in shaping Bermuda's future. Through a collaborative approach, the department has incorporated meaningful public input, resulting in a plan that fosters mixed-use development, a vibrant city center, and sustainable economic growth. The plan's flexible approach to urban planning and the introduction of placemaking principles have the potential to reinvigorate the city and make efficient use of its resources. Mr. Speaker, despite these sterling efforts, the department faces challenges, including significant staffing shortages and a high volume of substandard planning and building permit applications. The submission of deficient applications results in technical officers having to review the same proposal multiple times, which in turn causes delays in the processing of other applications. I'd like to read that again. The submission of deficient applications results in technical officers having to review the same proposal multiple times, which in turn causes delays in the processing of other applications. Mr. Speaker, recent global economic events have significantly impacted the property investment market, increasing investor risk aversion and the demand for quicker returns. As a result, there is growing pressure to develop tourism zone land for residential use. This trend requires the planning profession to adapt to increasingly complex proposals, balancing economic viability with long-term land use needs. To address these challenges, Mr. Speaker, the department has implemented several strategies, including hiring consultants to bolster its capacity and participating in the government bursary award program to support young Bermudian talent. The department has a strong track record of successfully employing Bermudian professionals through this program, including the current director and several other staff members. Additionally, Mr. Speaker, the department is one of the few government departments to have fully embraced a paperless system, enhancing efficiency and productivity. Mr. Speaker, the Department of Planning fosters collaboration with the public, industry stakeholders, and other government departments to ensure a sustainable and prosperous future for Bermuda. To this end, the department regularly engages with organizations such as the Institute of Bermuda Architects, the Professional Engineers Registration Council, and the Chamber of Commerce to stay informed about current trends and concerns. The department remains accessible to the public through various channels and actively promotes interdepartmental collaboration to drive positive change. Mr. Speaker, the planning system often involves balancing competing interests, which can lead to stakeholder dissatisfaction. The Department of Planning operates within a complex environment, managing a wide range of challenging functions. Despite these challenges, the department's dedicated staff strives to make reasonable, balanced, and informed decisions to improve the efficiency and effectiveness of the planning process. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Minister. Members, that brings us to a close of the statements for this morning. We will now move on. And the next item on the order this morning is the reports of committees. And we have a report from the Standing Orders and Privilege Committees. And the government whip will introduce that report. Government whip.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good morning, colleagues. Mr. Speaker, in the absence of the Deputy Speaker, and on behalf of the Standing Orders and Privileges Committee, I submit for the information of the members of this Honorable House the report, and I will quote a portion of it. The committee held meetings on the 25th and 29th of November, 2024, to consider several matters, including proposals for amendments to the House Standing Orders relating to parliamentary committees. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Government Whip, for standing in for the deputy. We appreciate that. Members, it now moves us on to the question period. And today is the second Friday of the month. And on the second Friday of the month, for those listening on the radio, we have Premier's question period before we go into the question period. So this morning we'll have Premier's questions, and that's a 30-minute period, and then we'll do the 60-minute question period afterwards. So, Mr. Premier, we have members who would like to put questions to you this morning. And the first question, and let me acknowledge that the opposition leader has gone out unwell and actually opposition whip to deputize on his behalf, and we've agreed that he would do the questions for you. So the first question is one from the opposition whip on behalf of the opposition leader. There you go.
Yeah. By the looks of things, very close. Today's statements. Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I apologize. I apologize for the leader not feeling well. We know that the flu has been going around, and certainly we don't want any of us to be afflicted by the same. So my first question then would be, Mr. Speaker, considering the revelation this morning gazetted by the Bermuda Clean Air Coalition, I was just wondering if the Premier, considering the major concerns that have been voiced today by the BCAC, would the Premier entertain delaying this Clean Air Amendment Act at this time, considering the major concerns that have been voiced today?
I'm just going to clarify for everybody. It's a matter on the order paper, so
Yes.
we normally don't address this, but your question is, would he consider
That's
delaying
correct.
it? So I'm accepting that
Yes.
it's not getting into the gist of
No,
the bill
no.
that will be discussed. It's just acting with delay it.
Yes.
Okay. Premier?
Mr. Speaker, thank you for that clarification because, of course, it was a matter that was on the order paper, so that question would be typically out of order. But let me try to recite the history on this, Mr. Speaker. This bill has been a long time coming. And this bill, and I'm going to share information with the House, was set to be tabled at the end of the summer. And the Bermuda Clean Air Coalition requested that we delay it for further consultation to extend the time. We did delay it for 6 weeks for further consultation to amend the time. Changes were made. This bill represents, as the Deputy Premier stated, stringent air quality standards and provisions that exceed standards seen in other jurisdictions. It is the right bill. I understand that, remember, Mr. Speaker, this is about democracy. There is always a balance, there is always a thing. But let me be clear to the honorable member. The house of which I grew up in is in the Belco zone. The constituency I represent is in the Belco zone. I want this bill to go forward to provide not only relief and stronger protections for my residents and my family, but also for countless other families who may not live around Belco because there are other pollutants and spaces, and we need to have strong regulations. The government has consulted on this, has promised on this, has strengthened provisions, has taken on board feedback, and so the short answer to the question is no, and we will proceed. But what I will say, Mr. Speaker, is we live in a strong democracy, and I welcome the Bermuda Clean Air Coalition sharing their views, sharing their thoughts. The views and thoughts of which they have added to the strength of this bill. The cabinet decided to delay the bill in regards to the letters of which they had sent to us and the protestation which they have made. We took those on board, strengthened the bill further, and we will be proceeding with this bill because it is important that we pass this to give the government the teeth to make sure to enforce these particular matters, as this has been going on for far too long.
Thank you, Premier. Second question or supplementary?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'll go to second question. And thank you for that answer. There's been a project going on for some time now, the solar project at the National Sports Center. And considering and taking into consideration, there have been updates. Just wondering, it seems to be lagging on and on. Is the Premier aware of what the complications are in getting this particular project to completion, and are now safe for a supplemental.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The question was I aware? I have not received the recent updates, but I'm happy to try to take any questions and try to answer as best I can.
Yes, supplementary. Considering the fact that this has been a major project going on for some time now, some would say years now, we understand that government has government had to extend finances to get this project to completion?
The Minister of Public Works has said no. I do not have a particular update on that. I'm happy to try to get the further information, and I have also messaged the minister responsible for the National Sports Center, and hopefully he'll be able to respond, but I don't have anything specific at this time. My last understanding was that I do believe that the matters were commissioned, but I'm uncertain, so I'll look to see if I can get answers.
Thank you. I'll go to my third question. Back in May of 2022, it was announced that a settlement had been made with Oars. And 2 years now, we still are not aware of how much that settlement was with Oars. Wondering if the Premier could let us know what was the settlement of Oars, considering many people are asking the question. This company may have, in their estimation, been acting illegally as a company debt collecting, and understanding that the former finance minister put it to task, and they were put out of, for that particular contract, put out of business. So can the Premier tell us how much that settlement was?
Mr. Speaker, it would seem as though if the OBA are coming up with some very old questions to try to get me to a space where I say I do not have that information in front of me, because I can assure you that despite my copious prep for Premier's question, that is not something that is inside of my particular matter. That matter was not handled while I was the Minister of Finance, so I don't have direct knowledge of it. I do know that there was a particular settlement. I will seek to get the particular information, but I'm reasonably certain those things may have been declared, and if they are not subject to any agreements, I'll make sure that information is shared. But I seem to remember that back when this was done, I'm reasonably certain it was reported in the public domain. But as I said, Mr. Speaker, I do not have that information, despite all of my preparation for the questions of which I thought the opposition may come with today.
Supplementary or?
Yeah,
Okay.
supplemental. I recognize that government doesn't go into court settlements too often. So then, who was the minister in May of 2022? Finance minister.
I was the Minister of Finance in May 2022. That much I can assure you.
Supplementary,
Yeah,
second sub?
supplementary. So then, considering the fact that not too many settlements are made in court by the finance minister, would he consider that a bit odd that he doesn't remember what the settlement would be?
Premier?
Mr. Speaker, what I will say is that he's saying it's May 2022. I know that I was not dealing with this particular matter in my time, but as I had undertaken to try to get information, I'm sure there's technical officers that are listening. They might get information for me. But in response to an earlier question, the Minister of Tourism, Culture, and Sport has responded. The project is 100% complete. It is not completely turned on, but they are seeing significant energy savings at the National Sports Center.
Thank you. And I think you've asked your 2 supplementaries and your 3 questions, so thank you for your questions. Opposition Whip, on behalf of your leader. The next member who has questions on is MP Campbell. MP Campbell, would you like to put your questions?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, given that the current governor is soon to depart and we are expecting to have a new governor, I was wondering if the Honorable Premier can provide us with an update on the works at Government House and the expected completion date of this works. Thank you.
Premier?
That, Mr. Speaker, is one that I did prepare for. And I received a recent update on that particular matter. I know that the bid went out for the replacement of the roof. The contract, I know that the tenders were received. I believe the contract has been executed, Carl? But I know that that matter is progressing. I cannot give the specific completion date, but I know that matter was funded inside of this year's significant capital budget, which was the highest in the last 16 years. And I do know that particular matter is progressing insofar as the replacement of the roof, which is the main thing to ensure that the building is watertight.
Supplementary?
Yes, Mr. Speaker. If I can switch to the current residents, or the temporary residence where the governor is residing. Can the Premier provide us with the length of the lease on that property?
Premier?
The lease on that property is until next November.
Acting Sub?
Yes, Mr. Speaker. Can the Premier provide us with the current rent on that property and what was the previous rent being paid on that property?
Premier?
Mr. Speaker, I do not want to give an exact number. That may be incorrect. Mr. of Public Works said he's not sure of the exact number, but unquestionably it is a significant property and significant rent, as it must be for the governor of the country.
Okay. You used your one question and 2 subs already. Thank you for your participation. The next statement this morning, next question this morning for the Premier is from MP Swan. MP Swan, would you like to put your question?
Yes, good morning, and thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the opposition continues to speak negatively about our island's current state, specifically in relation to the Bermuda's economy, with one MP recently being quoted as speaking of our island's impending economic collapse. Can the Premier please provide this honorable House of a factual update on the state of Bermuda's economy?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, before I address that particular question, having spoken to the honorable member from constituency number 21, the former Minister of Finance, it is correct that the settlement was entered in under my time as Minister of Finance, so I apologize for that. I remember I wasn't particularly dealing with that matter as it didn't happen, but the settlement that did occur did take place underneath my time as Minister of Finance, and I'll seek to get the information the honorable member did request, and I will write to technical officers to get it, as I do not actually recall the specific details of what was done there. So I just wanted to make sure the record was corrected on that and to reflect on that particular matter after my member has reminded me of what took place. Is that helpful? All right, great, thank you. Mr. Speaker, I thank the honorable member for the question, because it is particularly interesting that on any given day, we'll hear quotes such as, meanwhile, the country's very foundations are being eroded, leading only to loss of life, but impending economic collapse. And, Mr. Speaker, nothing could be further from the truth, Mr. Speaker. Today, we unveiled a path to repay this country's debt. Today, Mr. Speaker, we stated and made it clear that we will deliver a balanced budget. Today, in a pre-budget report, which records that the government is collected $100 million more of revenue this year as compared to the same period last year, while also being $65 million ahead of last year's fiscal performance. And so, yes, we understand that the opposition may have a political imperative to try to put in baseless narratives of doom and gloom, but the facts, Mr. Speaker, tell a different story. Let's look at the facts, Mr. Speaker. An expanding and growing economy. 8.7% real GDP growth in quarter 2027. Mr. Speaker, the GDP growth that Bermuda is experiencing in the Americas is second only to the country of Guyana, who has discovered massive oil revenues. As the Minister of Economy and Labor, this growth has been driven by increased trade balances. Employment income is up 8.8%. 180 new businesses were registered during the quarter. There was just release from the Bermuda Monetary Authority stating that insurance registrations are picking up and accelerating. Today, one of the largest insurers announced that they are forming a Bermuda-based subsidiary, MetLife. These are real progress and matters that are being made. I need not to speak, Mr. Speaker, about the Fairmont Southampton redevelopment, which is progressing as well, Mr. Speaker. In addition, we've seen cranes return to the city of Hamilton with construction that is going and picking up. And Mr. Speaker, we're going to continue to press forward ahead on these particular matters. So without question, Mr. Speaker, I certainly reject the baseless narratives, and the honorable member is right that what is being put out by the opposition is not factual, Mr. Speaker. We recognize without question that people are not all feeling the impact, and that is because of global inflation. But what we have been doing is by reducing the costs, freezing health insurance premiums on the government side, and doing everything that we can to make sure that we provide relief to persons.
Yep. Supplementary?
Yes, one supplementary, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the Premier for that answer. I did notice those big birds as I was driving in from the glorious East and was quite taken aback to see them back. Mr. Speaker, could the Honorable Premier provide further insight into how the government's strategic leadership through initiatives like the Economic Recovery Plan and the Economic Development Strategy has contributed to Bermuda's sustained economic growth and resilience?
Premier?
Mr. Speaker, the country's strong economic performance is no accident, and it is a result of deliberate planning and leadership by this government, driven first by our Economic Recovery Plan, which was put together in the auspices of the Honorable Member for Constituency Number 21, the former Minister of Finance, approved by the Cabinet, brought to this House, and pressed forward to execution. Now, have we executed successfully all 33 matters inside that plan? No, we have not. Are we still pressing forward on them? Yes. Have we executed a significant number of them? Yes. And are a significant number of those things in which we've executed bearing the results of which we're seeing in this economy today? Absolutely, Mr. Speaker. You have to look no further than when you look at something like Google, something that was in the Economic Recovery Plan, subsea cables, one of the largest companies in the world, investing in Bermuda. That, Mr. Speaker, is what happens when you put together plans, carefully thought out, consult with industry, and go ahead and to execute them. Then, Mr. Speaker, we build on that with the Economic Development Strategy, which was also brought to this Honorable House, passed by this Honorable House, and is being advanced by the Honorable Minister of Economy and Labor. And it's aimed at fostering innovation and entrepreneurship, particularly for small and medium-sized businesses, retaining what we have, diversifying and growing, and to make sure that we have fair labor protections and labor rights, and also better immigration policies in this country. And so, Mr. Speaker, these strategies which we've laid out cover the gamut of what is necessary to continue to build and diversify our economy. We committed to building a fair Bermuda for all, rebuilding Bermuda with Bermudians at heart, Mr. Speaker, and our economic policies are an example of that. And especially, Mr. Speaker, when you see a record number of Bermudians in international business, unemployment rates at levels not seen for many times, and continued investment in training and retraining, as stated in the Economic Development Strategy, to make sure that every Bermudian who wants to work can find a place to work in this economy.
Thank you. No further questions from the minister, from the member. The next question this morning is from MP King. MP King, would you like to put your question?
Here we go. Good morning, Mr. Speaker and honorable members and the listening public. So, Mr. Premier, sir, statements have been made about the health of the economy in Bermuda, and a number of indicators would suggest that is actually the case. However, when we have not had audited financial statements in quite a long time, how are we or the public to truly believe that this is actually the case?
Premier?
Mr. Speaker, just If I may ask the honorable member to withdraw that particular statement in question. It is non-factual, and the House will record that we did audited financial statements before, and audited financial statements are done. Those audited financial statements come from the Committee of Audit and reported and tabled in this House. So I'd ask you to have the honorable member withdraw that question. It is false, it is not factual, and he continues to perpetuate false statements to this honorable House.
Member, the Premier has acknowledged the fact that there are audited statements and they've been tabled in this House. And your question implied that there hadn't been any audited statements. So he's stating that factually the question was an error because audited statements have been tabled in the House already. Members, let him talk to the chair.
Thank you for the clarification, Mr. Speaker. What I'm speaking to, and I'll make the point, is that what we're talking about is the health of the country as a whole in terms of the financial, et cetera, in terms of the actual audited accounts across government ministries to make sure that we have an accurate picture of the health of this country. The other thing that
The Premier can answer, respond.
Mr. Speaker, that is his supplementary, and he's again demonstrated that he doesn't understand the way that finances work. Every ministry is audited by the Auditor General in the Consolidated Fund financial statements, which were tabled in this honorable House, Mr. Speaker. And so the member cannot get up here and say that we do not have audited financials when we do. Are in the public domain, in the record of this House. The audit for the last financial year is currently being prepared and will be tabled when the House returns. That is the fact, Mr. Speaker. There is a committee on audit, which clearly the honorable member is not a member of, but maybe, Mr. Speaker, you consider putting him there so he could get learned up and understand the way that this stuff works in this honorable House.
Point of order, Mr. Speaker. The Honorable Premier is misleading the House. The Auditor General has in fact indicated that there are a number of outstanding audited statements, including some that go back 10 years, including the Seized Assets Fund. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, so we are clear. The honorable member who asks the question asks about audited statements for the government of Bermuda. We understand on many different bodies, but let's just be clear. When we had outstanding statements for the Bermuda College, over the objection of the Auditor General, we changed the law to allow an external firm to go ahead and complete those audits, and those audits were brought up to date. And so guess what, Mr. Speaker? The honorable member can look forward to further changes of the law so we can make sure we get those statements up to date on the outside bodies. But on the statements of the Consolidated Fund, which are the revenues and expenditures of the government of Bermuda, those are done and produced on an annual basis as responsible and necessary by our bondholders, and those are done and completed. The honorable member who asked the question, Mr. King from number 10, is factually incorrect, and as I answered the honorable member previously, they can engage in this pattern and they need to stick to the facts.
Thank you. You have one supplementary left.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Members?
It's okay. Oh, sounds like we're inciting violence here.
Members?
Morning again, Mr. Speaker. The honorable member, Premier and Minister of Finance, said that we are going to make a debt repayment of $605 million in 2027. And based on the statement, it would appear that the corporate income tax that we are hopeful will bear the fruits that we've anticipated it will occupy a large part of that repayment revenue. So it appears that the corporate income tax, when we don't actually know how much it's going to generate for us, these are projections not actually made on fact, and we do know that international business are very good at protecting assets. Thank you.
Premier?
Mr. Speaker, true to form, doom and gloom all the time. So while the Premier of the country is engaged in conversations and discussions with members of the OECD, while the international business community praises the government of Bermuda for the way in which it's advanced this, while the Minister of Finance has discussions with the Secretary of Treasury of the United Kingdom to make sure that we advance these particular matters, we have the opposition who are completely misinformed about these matters, trying to throw mud. Let me inform the honorable member. We have projections on how much this would cost or how much this would bring in. So it is completely incorrect for the honorable member to say that we do not know. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, the corporate income tax will go into effect on January 1st, 2025. And thirdly, Mr. Speaker, outside bodies have stated that it is entirely conceivable for this country to repay its debt and build up a sovereign wealth fund. But the question, Mr. Speaker, facing the persons that are listening is, who do you believe will make sure the investments are in the best interest of the people of this country? The party that is here in government that has reduced taxes and made sure that we provided breaks to workers, the party that is here that is not going to adopt the approach of which that side takes, Mr. Speaker, and put money and revenues to reduce persons' taxes and invest in healthcare, Mr. Speaker. Those are the things the people of this country want. So for the honorable member to say that we are not going to get revenue from the corporate income tax, he is building his own narrative to try to continue to promulgate his falsehoods, Mr. Speaker. But everyone in international business, everyone in the international community, and everyone else who has a knowledge on this knows that what he is saying is false, Mr. Speaker. He answered the question, he should wait for the answer. Or asked the question, he should wait for the answer, Mr. Speaker.
Point of order.
Mr. Speaker, I did not say that the corporate income tax would. No. He's basically saying that
Members.
he's misleading the House,
Members.
Mr. Speaker. He's misleading. There. Thank you.
Members.
I did not say.
Clear on what the point.
Point of order is he's unintentionally misleading the House. I did not say that the corporate income tax would not result in revenue. My point was that the projected amount of revenue that it's going to bring into this country is an unknown quantity.
Mr. Speaker,
I'm going to give you the opportunity to respond to
please allow me to respond to this point of order. Again, incorrect. False. We have laid out the projections which have come from the accounting firms that were inside of our budget in 2024-25. It stated that the government intends to receive $750 million annually. But here's the thing, Mr. King. These budget projections do not even, honorable member, these budget projections do not even take into account the full amount that is supposed to be received. And, Mr. Speaker, if we receive more, as I said in my statement, those payments will be accelerated. But here's what's interesting, Mr. Speaker. We remember the debate and the discussion around, we are putting in place this corporate income tax and companies are going to leave. Can I tell you, Mr. Speaker, the government is seeing the exact opposite. The Ministry of Finance has had to hire persons in the registrar of companies to process the additional applications of companies that are coming into Bermuda due to the stability of this tax which we put in, Mr. Speaker. That is the reality.
Thank you. And the member has completed his allotted questions. The next question this morning would be from MP Jason Wade. MP Wade?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Members?
Mr. Speaker, could the Honorable Premier please provide an update on the government's efforts to enhance Bermuda's financial assistance programs, particularly the recent expansion of the child daycare allowance support, how these reforms have impacted Bermudian families?
Premier?
Mr. Speaker, before I answer this question, Mr. Speaker, I want to certainly pay tribute to that honorable member who I know has been in his constituency putting forward matters that are related to this. And when I say that, I know that that honorable member has gone around his constituency to ensure that persons are taking advantage of this particular child daycare assistance. Now, Mr. Speaker, in response to the question that the honorable member raised. The government's reforms to the financial assistance program have delivered tangible benefits to Bermudian families. Last week, we heard from the Minister of Youth, Social Development and Seniors that the expansion of the Child Daycare Allowance program, which was passed by this honorable House, saw the number in the last fiscal year move from 115 families up to 264 young people, Mr. Speaker. That is more than double the amount of families that have had access to this particular assistance. But I think what's also important, Mr. Speaker, is that the changes that were made to the financial assistance program with personal employment plans and others, and also the improving economy, have also shown other positive stats from that particular report. What is important to note is that for able-bodied unemployed, those numbers have also dropped. For persons who are earnings low on financial assistance, those numbers have also dropped. And that means, Mr. Speaker, that we are certainly making progress on this. What we said when we came into government is that we were going to reform financial assistance to make it more fair, to make it a path to work, and to expand the benefits to make it more fair, certainly for persons on child daycare. It was an unfair system, and I think it's important that honorable members remember, Mr. Speaker, that the OBA cut child care assistance to persons, cut child care assistance. And if you made a dime over $55 million, you could get nothing. We expanded that all the way up to families with $132,000, and they are benefiting, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Thank you, Premier. Members, that brings us to a close of the Premier's question period. We'll now start the period of the normal question period, which begins now, and that's 60 minutes for that period. The questions this morning from statements. We have members who wish to put questions to Premier on your statement this morning, and that first question comes from the opposition whip.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yeah, notwithstanding the potential surplus the Premier spoke of in his statement, what is the approximate cost of collections to government concerning all of the reductions that he mentioned that we would foresee coming for 2025-26?
Premier?
Mr. Speaker, I thank the honorable member for his question. I will happily refer him to page 6 of the pre-budget report, which was tabled in this honorable House and should be on the SharePoint system, because I think that it is important to note precisely what is happening. And it says for fiscal year 2025-26, the government is expecting non-CIT revenue to remain stable at $1.26 billion. Non-CIT revenue will remain stable due to the proposed tax and fee reductions stated earlier in this report that I covered inside of my statement today, which total an expected $45 million in tax/fee relief. If the honorable members wants to know the specific provisional allocations for the various amounts of the various reliefs of which I have outlined in my statement, I'm happy to answer that question if he wishes.
Thank you. Supplementary?
Yeah, supplementary, I guess. And I'm looking on page 6. I didn't see the 45 million on there. I don't see that. Page 6. What is that? Oh, what is that? Oh, that's your pre-budget. Oh, that's not your statement. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I was looking for it in the statement, but it's in his report. Okay. Okay, thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Any further questions? No further? Okay. All right, thank you. Premier, you also have questions from MP King. MP King, would you like to put your question?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I know in the ministerial statements, the Premium Finance Minister talked about 0% duty relief for the construction industry. Excellent. Absolutely, we're in support of that. I'm also mindful of the fact that reductions in import duties on uniforms and essential goods essentially also received deductions on import duties. I'm wondering also if the finance minister and premier will also give consideration to supporting the retail stores and businesses by providing them with a further reduction in import duties on clothes and other essential items. I know that relief has been given for payroll tax. What I'm suggesting is that perhaps the same sort of relief in duty that is afforded to the construction industry might actually help to stimulate their retail service industry in Bermuda, as opposed to having people enjoy greater benefit in shopping abroad. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Premier.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the honorable member for his question. Again, I'm just going to have to try to learn him up a little bit because it is important to note when speaking about retail in the last budget in our reforms to payroll tax, the broad-based reforms to payroll tax that the One Bermuda Alliance oppose, we reduce taxes to retail establishments, payroll taxes for retail establishments. In our first initial budget, we reduced the amount of duty on uniforms and to retail. We also extended the concessions for retail establishments to renovate and upgrade their things. We've expanded the tax deferment so that retailers can take advantage of that, Mr. Speaker. And so, but what's important to note, Mr. Speaker, is that you can only put forward this level of tax reduction, and I want to make sure that the country understands this, Mr. Speaker, that we have delivered a balanced budget before a dime of corporate income tax has been received by this government. We have, my members have corrected me. We are delivering a budget surplus before a dime of corporate income tax has been received, and that is because we have reformed our tax system. We have said that persons who make more should pay more, and persons who do not make more should pay less. 86% of local businesses, 86% of residents, and yes, every local business received a tax cut. That includes retail establishments. On the issue related to construction, Mr. Speaker, it is important to note that many persons do import items. If you've ever done renovations, all the rest, you may import your windows, you may import your doors, you may do that, and those persons will be able to see immediate benefit. And yes, this is going to cost a significant amount of money, but what we must recognize is that affordable housing is the number one issue that this government is pressing forward and looking to address, and we cannot do it alone in the government, and we want to give as much assistance to the private sector and others to reduce those costs so that they can go ahead and replace. And it's important, finally, Mr. Speaker, to note that a reduction in replacement costs for building materials can also lead to a reduction in home insurance premiums as those go up due to replacement costs that may happen from the cost of construction.
Thank you. Supplementary?
Listen for it. Mr. Speaker, the supplemental will be this. I am hoping that, well, the subsequent supplemental question thank you, is, will consideration be given to 0% taxation, import duties on clothing and other items the same way for construction materials? Thank you.
Premier.
Mr. Speaker, I will help this honorable member to understand the budget process. As I stated very clearly inside of the pre-budget report, these matters are open for consultation. But let me give a little bit more insight, Mr. Speaker, into the process for putting together the pre-budget report. Because this honorable member has stated a particular proposal of which he wants to be included. The junior minister of finance reached out to the One Bermuda Alliance and asked them if they had any suggestions for inclusion inside the pre-budget report. And they said, just refer to our former statements of which we made. And what I can tell you, Mr. Speaker, is what he just mentioned is not in those former statements.
Thank you.
Supplementary, Mr. Speaker.
Supplementary?
Yes, thank you. Premier, with this reduction in construction duties, you mentioned that it would be very helpful to many Bermudians, which we all realize. But, Mr. Premier, would you agree that this reduction in construction materials would, yes, I'll declare my interest. Would you agree, Mr. Premier, that this would also more than likely create many more jobs for Bermudians in this sector?
Premier?
Mr. Speaker, as covered in my statement, anytime that you reduce taxes, you spur economic growth and activity. And given the amount of tax reductions of which this government has placed inside this economy, it is no surprise that we are able, the Minister of Economy and Labor is able to report significant economic growth as we continue to press forward. But I will agree with the honorable member that the reduction in cost for construction, and I want to be clear, Mr. Speaker, this is significant. We are talking about rod. We are talking about tile. We are talking about paint. We are talking about cement. We are talking about concrete. We are talking about all the things which are necessary as part when we're talking about screws and joints and ice and all these things. Wood. This is significant, Mr. Speaker. But our view is, yes, and I'm sure the honorable member for constituency number 9 is smiling as well. But what I will say is, Mr. Speaker, is that this is significant because this is what is necessary to advance the policy directions for the government. Affordable housing is a critical issue. The remediation of vacant and derelict units, the renovation and upgrades of units to make sure that people can live in a good condition, and the government should do everything it can to reduce the cost of that. The one thing that we can do immediately is reducing customs duty, and we propose to do that in our next budget statement, and we welcome all persons, whether in the construction industry or otherwise, to go to forum.gov.bm to take a look at the pre-budget report, to go ahead, join the discussion, comment, say what you like, say what you don't like, say what we should consider, say what we shouldn't consider. And this government has demonstrated, as in our history, we will take those things on board as we produce the final budget, which will come to this House.
It's, MP King, do you have a second supplementary? Okay, thank you. Premier, that brings to close to members who had questions for yourself. We now move on. Minister of Works, there are questions that a member would like to put to you as well. And MP King, would you like to put those questions?
That's cute.
Regarding,
yes, good day, Mr. Speaker. Regarding the repurposing of schools and the revenues that are being collected from them, the question I have is, how are those monies allocated? Are they going to Bermuda Housing Corp, or are they going to the education programs? Thank you.
Minister?
Mr. Speaker, first I should say that I have a slight dilemma. You will know that you received 2 statements from me for delivery this morning, and I've read the incorrect one. But let me just say this. So there are 2 things in it that would be different. One, I pointed the direction of travel in relation to Heron Bay and a grocery store, which is getting slightly ahead of myself. But I will say that gives an indication of the direction of travel. The other omission from the statement that I read that would have been included in the one that should have been read was the fact that Gennaro Tucker will be running a cricket program from Tatum and have use of the bottom floor of Tatum. Now, in relation to the question that was asked about revenue from schools, any revenue from schools, whether they're open or closed, goes into the consolidated fund.
Yeah. Supplementary? Oh, okay, thank you. Minister, that was the only question for you this morning. The next statement as a question this morning is from the Minister of Youth, Social Development and Seniors. Minister MP King would like to put a question to you. MP, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Regarding the senior strategy, the question I have is who's going to provide oversight and accountability for the senior strategy to make sure it achieves its aims?
Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I did speak of this in the ministerial statement. So if we just opened our ears and listened a little bit.
It's always worth repeating. It's always worth repeating if it's good stuff.
Mr. Speaker, I mentioned that there will be a program manager hired and that the Ministry of Youth, Social Development and Seniors will be responsible for making sure the different ministries, organizations follow through on the action items in the National Senior Strategy. Thank you.
Supplementary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. What is the budget that's going to be allocated to the senior strategy implementation?
Minister.
Thank you, Mrs. Speaker. Thank you for that member for asking that question. As with any strategy that is put forth to the country, these are strategies or action items that have already been in train. And as the project goes along, Mr. Speaker, the budget requirements will be added as they go along. It's very difficult to predict what those accounting figures will look like going forward, because we know that things change and things evolve. But definitely going forward, we cannot discount the fact that significant investment will follow how we proceed with the National Senior Strategy.
Supplementary?
Yes, Mr. Speaker. So is it my understanding that the senior strategy strategic plan doesn't include an actual budget for the services that are being suggested? Thank you.
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I always wonder when the opposition asks questions like this, where are they living? We come to this house many times, Mr. Speaker, indicating how we spend our money, particularly as it relates in the social sector as well as our seniors. We do this every year when we come to budget debate as well. We would know that we've spent a significant amount of money as it relates to care support for our seniors, a significant amount of money as it relates to health insurance for our seniors, Mr. Speaker, a significant amount of money as it relates to how our seniors get pension increases every year, Mr. Speaker, a significant amount of money, Mr. Speaker, as I mentioned last week in regards to the support that we give through financial assistance, Mr. Speaker. This information is in the public domain. I ask, Mr. Speaker, that that member who's asking that question do his research to see what the government has spent on financial programs, services. I can go on and on, Mr. Speaker. I could. In regards to how government provides for our seniors. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
All right, thank you, Minister. Now, you used your 2 supplementaries. Do you have a second question? Okay, thank you. Minister, that completes the questions for you this morning. We have questions for a further statement, and that's from the Minister of Transport. Minister MP Pearman would like to put questions to you. MP?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad to see the Premier says he hasn't heard from me. He might have forgotten my point of order when I said he was misleading the House. Honorable Minister, thank you. In your statement today, you identified that increased airlift to our island is, quote, critical, and we agree. You identified available seats in 2018 as being 611,000. You identified that in last year, we had 2023, 433,000. That's a difference of 145,000. So there's 145,000 fewer seats last year versus 2018. What new routes and or new flights do you see filling that gap, closing that gap of 145,000 available seats?
Minister?
Mr. Speaker, let me make it very clear that not only do we see as far as filling that gap, but we also see the position of increasing that gap as far as the number of more airline lifts coming in as we continue to have discussions. But if Southern Princess, once it comes on board and other hotels come on board, we'll see a more need and demand for airlift.
Supplementary?
Yes, thank you. Supplementary. In relation to filling that 145,000 gap, you said at page 7 of your statement that you had discussions with British Airways. Is there any scope for expansion in the number of days that they fly, or the routes that they fly, or the seats on those planes?
Understood?
Mr. Speaker, discussions are still going on, but we hope to have that happen.
Second sub?
Second sub, I wish you well in the discussions. And second sub is in relation to the British Airways flights as currently exist. Does the Honourable Minister have any indication as to whether or not those flights might return so they dock at the gate of the airport as opposed to being bussed in on a regular basis?
Minister?
I'm seeing a quizzical look. I mean the Heathrow side. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I've been asked to repeat the question. The question is, during your discussions with British Airways, is there any indication as to whether or not we might see a return where the British Airways flight from Bermuda to Heathrow docks at an arm into the airport rather than docking and taking the buses? Thank you.
Yeah, that's a discussion we're also having with them, so we hope to have some more better decisions in the future regarding that. Exactly what you mean by that.
Okay. Second question?
No second question. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Members, that brings us to a close of the question period this morning, and we'll now move on to the next item on the order paper, which is let me reset the clock here, which is the congratulatory and obituary speeches. Would any member like to make a Premier?
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I will start on a happy note first. And I would like to, as strange as it is for me, to extend congratulations to congratulations to Skyport. But I wish to extend my congratulations for the amazing choir contests that they have organized, and also to all honorable members, because I know honorable members, hopefully from both sides, attended, but I know that a number of honorable members and ministers did attend this particular event, Mr. Speaker. And so for that, I want to certainly congratulate them for what they did. And I certainly want to, how would I say, take privileges to congratulate the Northlands Primary School on winning the award. In addition, I know the honorable member for constituency number 3 would hate for me not to mention the combined East End Primary and East End Primary and St. David's Primary, who had a wonderful presentation last evening as well, which featured my great nephew and also the honorable member's granddaughter, and who won the People's Choice Award. And I do believe the Barclay Institute beat out the Bermuda Institute to win the high school award. But it was yes, they did. BI lost. But Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, it was without question a great event. The final thing, Mr. Speaker, the final matter which I would like to cover today, Mr. Speaker, is I would like to ask all honorable members to be associated with these condolences. Last week, the Progressive Labor Party family, but also many of us lost a matriarch in our community. Ms. Barbara Lucille Brown passed away. She was in her 93rd year. She was the mother of our late colleague and minister, Walton Brown, also the mother of Vern and Deanna and Charles Brown and one other son whose name is George. Thank you very much. This is in my head. And I just wanted to make sure to express condolences on behalf of certainly this side, but I don't want to be partisan this, and I'll extend it to all honorable members. She was a light. She loved listening to the House of Assembly. She would listen to the House of Assembly every Friday religiously. And I remember her daughter, whenever I'd see Vern, she would always tell and share. So I just wanted to extend the condolences on behalf of the government to her family, Mr. Speaker, as many of them have worked for the government and work with the government and continue in that service, and certainly wish them peace during this time of mourning.
Thank you, Premier. MP Fogo, would you like to make a contribution at this time?
Yeah. Sorry. Yes, Mr. Speaker,
Right
even
ahead.
though the Premier has stolen some of my thunder. But firstly, let me express condolences to the Farbert Anderson family. Last week, I failed to mention that I'd like to associate member Kim Swan and member Renee Ming, who is a family member to her cousin who passed away at quite a young age last week or week before last. And it would have been remiss of those of us from the East to not at least extend condolences in this House to those families. Mr. Speaker, I want to be associated with the condolences that went out to the late Mr. Quentin Butterfield. I think condolences went out last week. And I want to be associated with those condolences. Thank you. Mr. Speaker, please let me associate myself to the congratulatory remarks made by the Premier regarding the schools who did participate in a sing-off and the finalists for each category. They, again, did a superb job and acquitted themselves extremely well when they entertained us yesterday evening at the LF Wade International Airport. And what stood out is that each of the winners, once they had won, added to their programs and just gave it a slightly different twist. But nonetheless, it was still as memorable as the original occasion when they sang a week or 2 weeks ago. Mr. Speaker, I also, I had congratulatory remarks for the St. David's Primary School, who had their play a phenomenal job. I would like to associate my sister member, the Minister Farbert from Constituency 4. She, like myself, was in attendance, and nothing but accolades for the performance that we, I guess, witnessed. I'm sorry, I did forget to associate the Minister of Education. They did an phenomenal job, and it should be, rightly so, highlighted in this House today. So on that note, Mr. Speaker, I will take my seat.
Thank you, MP Fogo. MP Richardson.
Good morning,
would you
Mr.
like to make a contribution at this time?
Good morning, Mr. Speaker, and to those in the listening audience. I want to start, I hope it's not a shock to everyone, but I want to start on a very, very sad note, and that is to extend condolences to the family of Miss Tarina Rollins, or Tarina Balberta. She was a police officer for a very long period of time. I knew her from 1981 when we first became police cadets, and she, and associate Minister Tanay with that. Just a tremendous, tremendous friend. I've known her for quite a while. She was actually, I would say, a creative before we started calling people creatives. Very, very artistic, very, very committed, very family orientated, and very, very consistent. Also a business person. She actually, as a female person, quite surprisingly, had a water truck business and the ice cream truck, which we were going to be driving together. But so be it. Yes, associate MP Anthea Simmons Wade also. Mr. Speaker, I want to also acknowledge on a very positive note, this person is very, very committed, a very high level of stamina. He actually went 80 years old on December 3rd. He has tremendous service to Bermuda. He was actually one of Bermuda's first netball referee, believe it or not, or netball coach. And that is none other than Mr. Roddy Burchell. Very well known, and was also granted recognition for 46 years service in the special courts, Mr. Speaker. Associate the whole House, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I also want to say, I know my time's not going to run out real quick, is that the Bermuda healthcare system has been tremendously blessed, because there is a young lady who is Bermuda's newest nurse. She went to school in the UK, assisted with a government scholarship and others. She went to Coventry University. She now has a BSc in adult nursing. She is mommy to Mr. Sato. Her name is Miss Deja Simons, Burgess Simons. She is my niece. She's actually flying back today, and so I want to hear Bermuda to congratulate her. She went through a lot of challenges, but she stuck to it, Mr. Speaker. And the last person I want to commend today is, we do this thing in Bermuda whereby we meet many, many people. So on one of my early morning walks at about 6 a.m., I did meet Mr. Albert Carter. Mr. Albert Carter is a former employee at Summerhaven. He's drive the bus quite a bit. And he now goes, he limps a bit, but before 6 a.m., he walks some race days over to Summerhaven to assist the young men that are there. And he also assists them with what they do to generate income and keep themselves busy. They actually stuff a lot of the envelopes on behalf of government. And so I see him moving along, shuffling along. I tell him he's got to wear a high visibility vest, but he goes there every day. And Ms. Simmons, who is the current matron there, she also commends him because he comes consistently and assists all those that are there and is an inspiration at age 75. I'll give him an early birthday. His birthday is on January the 1st. So congratulations, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, MP. MP Swan, you have your 3 minutes.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I would like to have congratulations sent to a few people. First of all, Mr. Bob Carraro from Glebe Hill in Tucker's Town, who single-handedly initiated the resurrection or saving of the Bermuda Goodwill Golf Tournament, of which I owe a great deal of my life to. During COVID, he didn't let it die because it's the oldest continuous event when he only had about 8 participants, and he leveraged his knowledge of around and friends around the world to keep this event. This week, he had over 200 people on island playing 3 courses simultaneously at Tuckers Point, Belmont, and Port Royal. A huge congratulations to him, because it sort of is the model that we need to follow of bringing events that provide tremendous economic input from areas and the demographic that spend and enjoy a Bermuda holiday experience. Mr. Speaker, I would like a letter sent to a Mr. James Robinson, the CEO of Cactus Limited, one of my golf students when he first came to the island, started this company that operates in the space of international business. Today, last week he reached out to me and said he wanted to do something for junior golf. I encouraged him to do it through the schools, and this morning he handed me 2 checks, one for East End Primary and one for Dalton Tucker, schools that I've been involved with through golf, to be able to do outreach to young students to introduce them to the game of golf. Thank you, Mr. James Robinson, for that outreach. He's done other things with some of my students to introduce them to his world. He's an academic and a very good gentleman as well, who has Bermuda at heart. And finally, on the same vein as MP Richardson, I would like to have a letter of thank you or congratulations sent to Ms. Zaria Trott, one of my constituents, a single mom who applied herself and, whilst being a single mom, educated herself further, and now has the designation of a registered nurse. And we look forward to her in 2025 entering into the nursing profession at the hospital. These are the type of stories that are great, because it shows persons that, notwithstanding your circumstances, you can apply yourself and chip away and move forward. And she's a great role model for young people, and she's a great and her family and friends like I are very proud of Zaria Trott, whose father and mother, Mr. and Mrs. Linwood Trott of St. George's.
MP. Mrs. Caesar, would you like your 3 minutes?
Yes, thank you,
Go
Mr.
right
Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to speak on something positive that has happened in our community with some young people, specifically the 3 female recipients of grants from the Bermuda Arts Council. Miss Janae Tucker is studying acting at the London School of Musical Theatre. In addition, Miss Honor Miners is studying dance at the Boston Conservatory at Berkeley. And Miss Vidya Cananer Watson, who also is studying dance at the Tring School for the Performing Arts. Mr. Speaker, I, as you know, in another life, was somewhat of an artist, a dancer. And so these types of things I'm really happy to see, and I want to say congratulations to these young women for their awards. While we're on the arts scene, I'd also like to congratulate the Department of Culture for opening the Makerspace up at the Cedar Bridge Academy with the help of the Education Minister, the minister who sits in another place, obviously, the substantive minister of the Ministry of Culture, and the chairwoman of the Cedar Bridge and the school president. I attended the opening and was quite impressed with the space. I encourage young people and artists of any age to take advantage of this space, as it is a rarity that anybody can provide this opportunity for them to hone their crafts. And finally, Mr. Speaker, I wanted to say congratulations, but also a sorrowful goodbye to the director of the Department of Culture, Dr. Kim Dismount Robinson. She has moved on to another career move. She's no longer with the department. She actually retired last week. But she hasn't gone too far. She will be at the Bermuda College. But we want to thank her for her years of service. She gave 15 years before becoming the director as the folk life officer at the department. And I associate the deputy, the Hill House, the Hill House, and thank her very much for her contributions to the arts scene and culture in Bermuda. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. MP Perriman, would you like your 3 minutes?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, on a sad note, I'd like to offer condolences to the Gray family for the loss of Miss Jillian Gray in her 86th year. Miss Gray will be known by some as the wife of Alan Gray, who, of course, was the person who brought, and I'm being asked by the Premier and indeed the Deputy, the whole House, to associate. She was the widow and wife of Alan, who brought Orbis to these shores, and a business that has done untold good for our island and enjoys and employs a high degree and number of Bermudian people. More than that, of course, she was a mother, a grandmother, and a great-grandmother, and condolences to her sons Trevor and Will, and also her daughter Jenny. Just as a personal side, I had the great good fortune of spending a lunch once with Miss Gray, probably a decade ago now, and her then husband Alan when he was alive. And they were truly remarkable people, considering the success that Orbis and he had seen in his lifetime, so down to earth and so very loving of our island, and grateful for the opportunity to have had their businesses flourish here in Bermuda. So thank you, and condolences to the family.
Thank you, MP Perriman. Members, we're looking at the clock right now, time-wise. Are there many more who would, well, my question is, are there many more people who would like to give remarks under condolences and congratulations? Well, if it's many more, I would suggest that we take the break at this time and come back. If there's only one, I would take one, but I see more than one hand. So, Premier, would you like to?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I move that this honorable House do now adjourn until 2 p.m. for lunch.
Are there any objections? There are none. The House now stands adjourned until 2 p.m.